Long time ago in a galaxy far, far away. Well, actually, it wasn't a galaxy that far, far away. It was Germany. Well, not actually Germany, but the place we call Germany now. And the time was 1778. So I'm hoping to just give you a quick overview, very oversimplified version of the quest for the historical Jesus. The 5 phases in which they were, and just a quick idea of what happened in each phase for you can get a place of where we are, where we've been, and where we're going. So the first phase is the old quest, 1778 to 1906. Key thought to take away from this is we all heard about the Superman comics, yes? I had an argument with my kids recently. Is that Marvel or not Marvel? So watch your DC. I don't know. Regardless, we have Superman and we have Clark Kent. This phase, the old phase, is let's get rid of Superman because that's all made up, and let's just study and try to see if we can find out who Clark Kent is. Who is the real Jesus before he became Christ? The next phase develops after that, and that is brilliantly named the No Quest period. This is roughly beginning of the 20th century. Rudolf Bultmann and Jesus and the Word is one of the key contributors to this quest. And pretty much what he says is, I do indeed think we can know almost nothing concerning the life and the personality of Jesus. So he just gives up. And he says, well, what does Jesus mean to you? It doesn't matter what history is, what we know about the sources. What does he mean to you? And that is the key driver behind the No Quest. Then the next quest begins. The next quest is roughly 1953 to 1985. And Ernest Caseman is the key contributor there, and his paper, The Problem of the Historical Jesus. And in it, he argues that yes, the Gospels have a lot of things that are, well, not true. They're myths. But within those myths, like a pearl in an oyster, that grain that first started the myth being developed, that beautiful mythology that developed behind it, there actually was a deed that happened. Jesus feeding the 5,000? That seems way overblown. How can you do that? But he must have done something to help other people that created that myth. And if we go through the layers and we analyze it close enough with the criteria of authenticity, we can find out who the real Jesus is and what he said. Jesus seminars that comes along the 80s and 90s where they're voting on the beads, big part of it, but that's a much different story, different time. And then we had the third quest. Yes, I already had 3 quests, but the third quest, the third quest is actually the fourth quest if we divide it this way. But the biggest thing about the third quest in 1973 to 2010 is the Jewishness of Jesus. So there's much debate among the scholars, but all the scholars are trying to see who can make Jesus the most Jewish, because you cannot understand Jesus unless he is Jewish, because he was a Jew. And that is what drives the third quest. And this has roughly died down. Like, it seems like it's been a long time we're waiting to see something happen. And that is possibly what is happening right now, is with the next quest, as it's been self-named. So James Crossley and Chris Keith are now trying to start another quest of the historical Jesus, writing up 10 principles in which they want to guide the quest to see if we can better understand who Jesus was and the time and place in which he lived. That is the rough idea of where we are right now. We started out with, we got to strip away all the myths about the life of Jesus and the person of Jesus. And then we just gave up and like, there's too much myths. We cannot do this. We got to give up. But then there was like, no, a myth doesn't appear out of nowhere. There is some grain of truth behind that myth, and that grain of truth can be discovered. And then as they continued with that, they were like, one of the key things we must understand is if Jesus was the son of David, that makes him a Jew. And we got to understand him within his cultural context of his Jewishness in the Second Temple period. And as that fully developed or went on, we've now come to the stage where we're like, what if we studied the life of Jesus like we study any other historical figure? and find out where he was in the stream of history as it weaved and it whined and it developed, to understand who he was within his time period. And that is the 5 quests, as I understand them, of the quest for the historical Jesus.